I am recording now. Okay? So here is our cosine law setup. Next, I'm going to move to a page that you wrote down during the bell work today. Okay? So I'm going to move to a page right here. This is what you recorded during the bell work, and this is to make our lives a little bit easier. This is just exactly what you saw on the previous page, except I've rearranged it 2 other ways. So it's exactly what you saw on the previous page, but I've rearranged it 2 other ways. I want to point something out. You'll notice on this one we've got side A over here and angle A over here. On this one we've got side B over here and angle B over here. On this one we've got side C over here, angle C over here. Okay? Same thing over here. We've got angle A right here. The one at the end that we're subtracting is side A. We've got angle B right here. The one that we're subtracting at the end is side B. We've got angle C over here. The one that we're subtracting at the end is side C. So it's important to know that those are matched up. If we don't match those up properly, we're not going to get a correct answer. I'm going to get rid of those. And now I want to bring your attention to the other sides of the triangle. These 2 are my 2 other sides of the triangle, and you'll also find them right here. These 2 are my 2 other sides of the triangle, and you'll also find them right here. These 2 are the 2 other sides of the triangle, and you'll also find them right here. What about for finding angles? These 2 are my other sides of the triangle. You'll also find them here. Same deal here, and same deal here. Okay? So if we match all those up correctly, you're going to find that this is going to work really well for you. So I'm going to get rid of those as well. Now you had time to write this down during the bell work. Hopefully you've got this all. If you don't, because you didn't have a chance to write it down during your bell work, I'll post it right after class on the class site. Okay? So I want to show you how this works now, because honestly this won't really stick or make sense until you actually see it in action. So let's actually try this out. Okay? So here's our first example. It says find side X in the triangle below. The first thing we need to do is we need to figure out, is this a side-side-side situation or a side-angle-side situation? Side-side-side, we would know all 3 sides of the triangle. Side-angle-side, we would know 2 sides and the angle in between those 2 sides. So I want you to write in the chat right now without pressing enter. Don't press enter. I'd like you to write in the chat right now without pressing enter. Is this SSS or SAS? And I'm going to ask you in a moment to hit enter. Is this a side-side-side or a side-angle-side? You might not know, but take your best guess. Right? Being wrong is okay. You're just learning this, many of you, for the very first time. So take your best guess. Type that into the chat, and I'll let you know when it's time. Okay, let's hit enter and see what we got. Do we think this is side-side-side or side-angle-side? Okay, lots of sass. And you'd be correct if you said side-angle-side. If you said side-side-side, that's okay too, because we're prepared to be wrong to learn new stuff, right? But this is side-angle-side because we know one of the sides, we know another of the sides, and we know that angle in between those 2 sides. So that's a side-angle-side setup. So now we're going to solve this. I'm looking to find a side, so that means I want to use this version. So I'm going to copy this. Oh, maybe I don't have that independently. Here, let's go up here. Can I copy this? Yes, I can. And we're going to paste it here, so we got this handy. This is our cosine law for finding the sides. Now you notice my triangle is not labeled A, B, and C. It's not labeled at all. So you know, what do I do? Well, that's okay. I need to remember that this one right here is the side I'm trying to find. So that corresponds to this x over here, right? That's the side I'm trying to find. So I'm just going to write that as x squared instead of a squared. And I know that this angle has got to match up. It's got to be the angle that is like on the other side of the triangle there, right? So those are forming kind of a pair. So that's going to be the 43 degrees. So I'm going to put those in first. And so I'm going to go cosine of 43 degrees. So I know I've matched those up. I didn't muck it up, right? So I always do those two first because those are a pair. So that's good. Now let's put the other stuff in. I know I've got a 2, and I know I'm multiplying that by some sides of the triangle. And I know I've got the other sides of the triangle, and they're squared. And then I'm subtracting. So I've kind of got it all set up. Okay, so I know one of the sides of the triangle is 24. I'm going to write that in. You might say, hey, Mr. Roy, could you put 36 there instead? Yes. The order doesn't matter for those two other sides. So I put the two other sides in. I'm also going to put them in here, 24 right here, and 36 right here. And now everything is set up and ready to go. Now it's just a matter of crunching some numbers. So we're going to start calculating this. Now, I want to point out something. Students get themselves into trouble with this chunk right here. They start like multiplying stuff, and then they subtract this off of the other numbers before they multiply it by cos of 43. It gets messy. So we got to remember our order of operations. We got to multiply all of this stuff out because this chunk is one term. It's going to be one number, and we're going to subtract that whole number off of the other stuff. Okay, that's one number. So we got to keep our order of operations. We got to multiply all of that stuff together before we subtract any of it off. So here we go. Let's go back to my purple marker, and we're going to leave our x squared there because we don't know what it is yet. 24 squared is going to be 1,296. Oh no, sorry, I'm doing that in the wrong order. It's going to be, I did the 36 squared first. I want the 24 squared first. It's going to be 576. That's 24 squared. 36 squared is 1,296. And then I'm subtracting this whole thing. I got to multiply all of that out. So that's 2 times 24 times 36 times cosine of 43, which is just some decimal number, right? 0 point something, something, something. So I did my exponents first, order of operations. Now that I've done my exponents, I can do my multiplying. So let's do that. Let's multiply all this stuff together. 2 times 24 times 36 times cos of 43. Your calculator might make it so you want to do the cos of 43 first. Just get that. It's a decimal number. And then take that number and go times 36 times 24 times 2. That's probably easier to do. So remember, you just need to multiply each of these by the other. 2 times 24 times 36 times cos of 43. Plug that all into your calculator. You should end up with 1,263.8. I'd like you to make sure you can do that part. I know you can square numbers, but I want you to make sure you can multiply all those terms out. 2 times 24 times 36 times cos of 43 and get the same answer as me. So try that right now, please. Make sure that you can do that on the calculator that you're using. Okay. So let's do our last part, our adding and subtracting. We're getting close now. I'm just going to do all these numbers in one go. So 576 plus 1296 minus 1263.8, that's going to leave us with 608.2. And then we got to take the square root of that, take the square root of both sides. And we know it's got to be the positive number because we're dealing with a triangle. It doesn't have negative sides. Ooh, that didn't turn out nice. Where's my eraser? I'd like you to make sure you're doing the square root as well, just to make sure that that's something that on your calculator you know where that is and you know how to do that. And you should get 24.7 when you round that off. So that's that side length of the triangle. We've used our new version of Pythagorean theorem, the real version of Pythagorean theorem, called cosine law, to solve for the side of a triangle. And now I want you to try one with limited help. So I've taken you through one. I'm going to want you to try one that's basically the same, but it's got different numbers. Okay, we're going to try this from scratch. So here we go. We're going to be finding side B. So the catch is, what we're going to be putting right in here is actually side B. That's the one we want to know. And what we're going to be putting in here is angle B, because those are the two that are opposite one another. So I'm actually going to go get a different version of this law, just to make it a little less confusing. And I'm going to post that up here. There it is. Okay, so go for it. You've got 4 minutes to try this out. I'd like you to try and calculate side B. I'm going to start adding some little hints and tips onto the screen, but you can go for it and just work away. Okay, folks, I'm going to start adding some stuff on here. Some of you may have whipped through that really quickly because you might be a little more experienced with this. That's great. Some of you may still be chugging along, or you may be stuck in a few spots. That's okay too. But I'm going to start putting this up on the board so you can kind of follow along and see where you're at and make sure you're doing okay with this. Most students find that if they practice cosine law a lot, they get really good at it and find it pretty easy. But it takes practice. Once you get good at knowing what pieces go where and you get comfortable with it, it becomes pretty easy. If you don't put in the time, though, it stays much more challenging. So we're going to say b squared is going to be equal to the two other sides. I could write them in any order, but I'll stick with the labeling on my triangle. But it's the two other sides. And then minus 2 times the two other sides times cosine of 55 degrees. I can barely squeeze it in, but there it is. I made sure to point out that this angle and this side are the ones that are on two opposite ends of my equation, and those two are opposite each other in the triangle. So that's good. I must have done that part correctly. 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9. You might say, hey, Mr. Roy, I want to skip a couple of steps in here. I'm usually okay with that as long as it's clear that you know what you're doing. So 2 times 2 times 3 times cos of 55 gives you 6.9 if we round off to 1 decimal place. Add all of those up. And we're going to end up with 6.1. Take the square root of both sides. We're going to end up with 2.5 when we round it off, 2.5 centimeters. We'll usually round off sides to 1 decimal place unless I tell you otherwise. Okay? So we've only done practice for those of you who are zeros or ones. You've never seen this before. So you've done practice once. So hopefully that felt like okay, but if you practice it 10, 15 times, you're going to find that you're really quick, you're really sharp, it'll go nice and easy. Okay, so that is finding a side using the cosine law. Now we're going to try and use it to find an angle. So we're going to use the other version of it. If you want, you can use this same version and just plug everything in, but you're going to have to rearrange the whole equation. So it's going to be more algebra. It's going to be more work, which is fine if you love that. So, you know, if you're a fan of that, go for it. But I'm gonna use the rearranged one because I'll find that a little quicker. So here's our second example. We're going to find the angle in this triangle. So I'd like you, please, to write in the chat, but don't hit enter. Is this side, side, side? Or is this side angle side? What do you think? Let's take your best guess. It's okay to be wrong. It's not okay to not take your best guess. So what do you think? Side, 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 or side angle side? Type it into the chat and I'll let you know in a moment to hit enter. Okay, go for it. What say you, my math students? Be this side, 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 or side angle side? I'm hearing a lot of hissing snakes. Side, side, side. Good. So it is. We know all three sides. Boom, boom, boom. So it's side, side, side. That means cosine law will work for this. It's a great candidate for this because we know all three sides. So again, this is a situation where we're going to reach for cosine law in our toolbox. So I want to go back to where we've got our equation for that. I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to bring it with me to that page. Let's park that up here so we remember how to use it. Because we're finding an angle, we're going to end up doing the cosine inverse at the end. We're going to end up doing the cosine inverse on our calculator. So we're going to hit shift or second function or whatever, and then cosine to the -1 button because we're finding an angle. So we are going to need to do that. So be prepared for that. All right. So let's set this one up. Let's do some lovely green writing. I first want to notice that this 120 and my angle, those are the ones that are opposite one another. Right? Those are the ones that are opposite one another. So when I do this, I'm going to go cosine of theta, because that's what the angle's called in this particular triangle. And I know that the one that I'm subtracting, the number that I'm subtracting needs to be the 120. Because that's the one that's opposite that angle. I can't put the 80 or the 60 there. It needs to be the 120. So I always do that first to make sure I've got those matched up. I did it. I got it first. Now I can just plug in the other sides, right? So I got a 2 here. I got one of the other sides. I don't know. Let's do 60 first because the order doesn't matter. 60 squared plus 80 squared. And then I've also got the 60 and the 80 on the bottom. There. Now the math here is actually not that hard, right? I just need to square some stuff and multiply some stuff. So on the top I've got 60 squared is 3,600. That's easy to remember because 6 squared is 36. 80 squared is 6,400. That's easy to remember because 8 squared is 64. And 14,400 is 120 squared. So that's my exponents. That's all done. So I might as well do my multiplying now. 2 times 60 times 80. That's 9,600. Now I can do my adding and subtracting on the top. 3,600 plus 6,400 minus 14,400. That's actually going to give me a negative number. I wonder what that's all about. Why would it give me a negative number? Isn't that strange? It's not actually strange, but at first glance it might appear strange. Okay, so here's something I know. I know because I'm getting a negative number that my angle is going to be bigger than 90 degrees. That's just something you're going to get used to, that if you're doing the cosine of a negative number, and I'm going to show, especially for the 11U class, you're going to figure out why that's the case. A cosine inverse of a negative number will give you an angle bigger than 90 degrees. So we say, okay, when I divide those out, what do I end up with? Cosine theta equals 4,400 divided by 9,600, but it's a negative. It's going to be 0.4583. I'll go to 4 decimal places, and that's plenty. Now I need to use that cosine inverse on my calculator. So I'm looking for that second function button that's going to give me that cosine inverse of 0.4583. I want you to make sure you do this on your calculator so that I know for sure that you're able to do that. And you should get, when you do it, oh sorry, that negative is still in there. Don't forget to put that negative in. If you don't have it as a negative number, it's not going to give you the right answer. It's 117 degrees. Go ahead, Emma. Okay, so are you doing the cosine inverse? It's probably that you're using the subtract symbol rather than the negative one. There's probably a button on there that has like a plus / minus on it. It'll look a little like, it might look like this. Or it might, you might have a button that says negative. Yeah, that's it, Sam. So Sam's showing us right in the corner, there's a little negative button. It might look like that, so negative in brackets. because what happens is the calculator, for whatever reason, distinguishes between subtraction and making a number negative. I don't know why it does that and why they haven't been able to code it to not have that problem. Human brains don't have that problem, but I imagine that's why. Did that fix it for you, Emma? Awesome. Okay, thank you for mentioning that, because I imagine there's a few other people in that boat. So we should get 117 degrees when we put that in. And 117.2, but we'll round off to the nearest degree. That'll be good enough for us. Okay, so I'm going to have you do one of these next. You're going to have to set up your equation. You're going to plug in your numbers. We're going to see if we can get to that final answer. I'm going to write the final answer for this next one on the board, and I will show you how to do it in a minute, but I'm going to start by just writing the final answer on there so you'll know if you've got there. Okay, so let's flip to that next one. We're trying to find angle B. We're trying to find angle B. It's a side-side-side situation. We know all three sides. So that means we're going to use our version of the formula to find an angle. Since we're finding angle B, I'm going to grab this one that says cosine of B. It doesn't really matter, but it can help with keeping things clear for us a little bit. But as long as you're making sure that you're matching up, this angle is the one you want to find, and this is the side that's across from that angle on the other side. As long as you're matching those up, you'll be in good shape. So this one up there in the corner is our 12, because it's matched up with angle B. Okay, so I'm going to clear this off so you can see it better. I'll ask you to give that a try right now. You got 3 minutes. Go for it. Amory, you were saying when you're putting in the negative cosine, it just brings up polysolver menu. What type of calculator are you using, Amory? TI-36X Pro. So that's a two-liner. 1 second, I'm going to check into this. So Amory, you may need to reset your calculator, but I'm going to write on the screen exactly what you should type in. So on your calculator, you're going to type in the following. You're going to hit the cosine button. No, sorry. First, you're going to hit the button that says second. And then you're going to hit your cosine button. So that should give you your inverse cosine. And then you're going to hit this. It should put a bracket there for you automatically. Then you're going to hit this button. It's down in the bottom right near the bottom of the calculator. That's going to give your value a negative value if you need to have a negative value, like in the last question that we did. And then you're going to type in your numbers. So I'll just put the number sign, type in your numbers. And then you're going to put a close bracket, close off the bracket, and then you'll hit equals. If that doesn't work, you're going to need to reset your calculator. And I can tell you how to do that. So just give that a try and then let me know if you need to reset it. Say again, Amory, I can just barely hear you. So when you hit second and then you hit the cosine button, it brings up the polysolver right then. Okay, that's weird. Here's what you're going to do. Hit second, then hit your plus button. It should take you into your memory. Oh yeah, you might not have your memory there. This one might be different. Okay, I think I know why. Your second function above your cosine button, it actually says polysolver. Your cosine button for some reason says cos and cos inverse. It's got the cosine and the cosine with the -1. You're going to need to figure out how to switch over to cosine. So I don't know if there's another button on there that's not a second function button, but one other one that'll like shift it. Maybe you hit the button twice. Give that a try. Turns what on and back off? Okay, good. Well, that's what you want, right? So then hit that button twice, and then you should have your second function mode ready to go. Give that a try. Let me know if that's not working for you, okay? Okay. Well, I'm gonna. This is something we're gonna have to figure out. Okay. So I won't do it right now, but if you can stick around after today or another day, we're gonna have to figure this out. Because you'll need to know how to use that inverse cosine for sure. Otherwise, this calculator will not be useful to you for this unit. So maybe a good start would be to, I can probably figure it out, but I don't have one of those in front of me. So you may want to try looking up a video online of someone doing that. That's what I usually do when I'm trying to figure out these ones. Okay, I want to take this up really quick. So, so here we go. Let's go blue. So we're going to do our cosine of b, and I'm going to put the 12 over here, and I'm going to put my other two sides in some order here. And I got my 2 and my 8 and my 10 because those are my other two sides. And then it's just a matter of grinding out that math. So I end up with 20 on the top. And 160 on the bottom. So that ends up with a ratio of 0.125. And now I'm going to do my cosine inverse. So that should be 83 degrees when you round off to our nearest degree. Okay, so if you are able to do calculating a side and calculating an angle, that's all the basic functionality we need for cosine law. Questions can get a little more complicated where it's like, here's a thing that's described, you need to draw this now, and then you have to figure out how to draw it and what it would look like. But if you can do those two basic things, find a side and find an angle, then you're pretty much good to go with cosine law. We'll do a check-in tomorrow to see where you're at. I want to just take this last couple minutes to talk about some stuff I'd like you to practice tonight to help reinforce this. This one is essential that you practice it to feel sharp with it. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording and then I'll talk about stuff to work on tonight.